In this video, voguebrunette gets mentored by Reverse Polarity and Madison Hatter 2 as part of her series of learning how to make a UGC catalog for the first time. They'll review her work and what she was able to make so far on her own, and then give their perspective and advice as experts. This VOD is mostly uncut, to give you a glimpse into what it's really like to get help and ask questions as a total beginner. To see voguebrunette's vlog of her journey as she tries to learn UGC on her own, check out the link in the description.
Hi Madison! Hi Reverse! I'm so excited to show you guys what I made this week. But first, let me show you how I kind of did it through mishmash tutorials, and then I'll show you guys my final product. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Alright, so for this week, my party trick is pre-prepared, you know, like when you pre-mix your margarita. So let me show you first how I did my pearl. Can you guys see?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay, so I started off with the trick Reverse taught me last week to keep my triangles in somewhat of a better place. So I turned a cube into a sphere. So we all know that. So that's pretty easy. And then for my chain, I took a torus and I turned down the sphere count or whatever to 6 so that it looked more like how you would think a chain would look. And then I kind of cut it in half, as you can see here, and then I bridged the missing loop there. So then I got something that looks more like a chain. All I did there was I just duplicated it, rotated it, and then Control J to make it one object. So then I had this. So this was my like chains for in the middle of my pearl. Okay, so then we had to do an array of pearl chains.
Those chains look great, by the way. That's exactly how you should do it.
Yay! I was like, hopefully this is not like the wrong way to do things, but through a million tutorials, I gathered bits and pieces and put this together. So then I just had my pearl and my chain, and I kind of created an array here. To get the array to work was a nightmare. And I finally figured out that you had to kind of fix it here because my array kept going on top of each other instead of, you know, horizontally. It was doing it vertically. But then all I had to do was add a circle here, and then I connected the circle to the array and just duplicated it like a million times. 16 times, not a million, to get it to fill the circle, and then just sized it to the size I wanted, because obviously that's way too big. And then for the heart, this is where I had the most issues, I would say. There's a lot of different ways to make hearts, I think, and I nearly tapped out on this one, I'm gonna be very honest, until I found a tutorial that had a plugin. So I was not very happy with how my heart came out, and then I found a plugin. So this is a pre-made heart. So if this is not the way to do it, or if this is not gonna export, this is why I have you guys to tell me. But let me show you guys my...
So, real quick, general rule of thumb, always good if you can find a plugin to make things go faster, install it and use it.
Okay.
I think that might be the extra objects plugin. Fantastic. I use it all the time for making diamonds. It looks like you might have made your heart that way.
Yes, yeah. Because this other way was truly a nightmare. I couldn't get the bevels to bevel just right, and then you're supposed to bevel the front facing, which I could not get to work.
I hate making hearts too, so...
Okay, good.
I also use a plugin.
Okay. So this is my final product.
Yay! Oh, that's gorgeous. That looks just like your reference photos too.
Yeah, I was so happy with it. But even though I think it looks great, I do have quite a few questions. The first one being that my array wasn't duplicating correctly. And I just wanted to figure out, like, I figured out eventually that it was, I don't know on here which one it's going to be, but eventually I figured out that it was that point over here that I had this over here. But it wasn't intuitive for me that was where it was supposed to be. Is there some other way that someone else could figure out that quicker? Because in all the tutorials I saw, people just, duplicated their item and it did it the way it was supposed to. Not that like I had to do all this extra work to make sure it was duplicating where I wanted it to so that the pearl would go to the other end of the chain. If that makes sense.
I think Blender is a lot of tinkering, and I think the way you came about this was the correct workflow. I mean, it's possible that there is something better out there. There's a better way to do it, but that's exactly how I would have done it as well. So
okay.
I think that's perfectly fine.
That's very reassuring that my thought process is there. Okay.
Yes. Sometimes there are shortcuts for these things, and sometimes you just get the best results by doing the work and manually positioning things the way you want to. I found that to be especially true when you're working with arrays and curves.
Okay, great. Because I was sitting there just like rotating and moving, and I was like, I don't know if there's a faster way for this, but it's good to see that that's how you're supposed to do it. And then the next question was, in order to attach the chain, right, so the heart to the circle chain, I had to rebuild the chain part instead of duplicating it, because if I had duplicated it, I had already attached it to my pearl and my array, so that wasn't going to work. So when I had to UV unwrap it, I had to, UV unwrap
I
twice.
see.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
So you could have gone about that in two different ways. And so this will often happen when you're making a model. You will realize, oh no, I had a piece of this model that I really wanted to have exist in this different spot or with this different version. So now what do I do? You can actually, a lot of the times, this is why you don't want to apply modifiers. Like if we apply that, now this is all one long mesh. So one of the ways you could have gone about this is, instead of applying that, you duplicate it, maybe you move it up a little bit, and then you get rid of the modifiers you have. Oh. And now it goes back to being the original, and maybe you don't want that pearl there, and you can just delete it.
Wow, okay, like that just seems so much more simpler than having to rebuild it. Okay.
And that's the solution you're going to run into. Everyone has this happen to them where you realize later on that you have something that you wanted to have again, but you've already modified it. So there's some best practices you can use to prevent issues in the future. Like, let's just say that you didn't have this, like this was already applied, and this is all you had. This is why I always recommend keeping a copy of things, all in different layers, like we talked about, or I guess they're called collections now, like we talked about last time. So I always, in all of my scenes, I have one called backup.
Okay.
And once it's there, I usually move back up to the top, in the scene collection, and then I hide it. Okay. And then if I ever find, oh no, I wanted that, boom, it's right there.
Oh, gotcha. And so, but like when you're going to be eventually, right, putting it into Roblox, are having all these little hidden items going to mess that up?
Not at all.
Okay.
With Blender, you can choose what you're exporting, and when we get to that stage, we'll be able to like specify exactly what we're taking out. Another thing that you should also get used to doing, this isn't as necessary. I think if you keep backups, that's fine. But when you go to like save your file, for instance, it is very useful to save in iterations. So I always save, if this was my file, it would be necklace 101, 102, 103, etc. So that I had like different versions. And that's especially useful. It's going to be way more important when you get to layered clothing. The necklace, it doesn't change very much from version to version. Layered clothing with weight painting and stuff, you really want to be saving in iterations.
Okay, gotcha. So then I guess my next question would be, is there a way that I can combine, because right now everything is kind of like sitting next to each other but not necessarily connected, without combining them in a way that like, dysmorphs them and makes them look all weird?
So right now you've already messed with the X factor here in the array modifier. Which basically this normally defaults to like 1 or something. But this is how you sort of adjust how many like how far away each piece is. And when you hit tab to go into edit mode, you can even see it a little better. So your pearls are always going to connect in that way. As far as like actually merging them together, I think this looks pretty good. This is pretty standard for Roblox. Like maybe you might want to bring it a little closer or something. Really, that's in the eye of the beholder, I think. I think 0.9 looks good. Maybe 0.88, just to make sure that the things are clipped into the pearls.
Okay, perfect. And how do I keep my modifier stack? Because I noticed that sometimes if one thing is above the other, it kind of changes how things work. Like, is there like a secret Blender feng shui on like how I should innately know like what should go on top of the other thing?
There is a secret Blender feng shui, but there is no secret as far as like how you learn it. It comes from trial and error. So you can think of it this way: your top modifier is the first thing that's happening. So in our case, the first thing that's happening is that we're stretching this all out so that there's a sequence of chains and pearls and chains and pearls. And then the next modifier you have here is the curve modifier, and so that comes in second. So that means that you already have a whole bunch of them, and then they're bending around the curve. If we put the curve above, it will all just lay flat, because the curve is only influencing the first one in the sequence. So it's like there is a logic to it, but honestly, trial and error. Mess around with it. If it looks weird, swap them around. My like the only one that is pretty much always universally at the top, though, is the mirror modifier. If you're using a mirror modifier, you can put that at the top. Very rarely is there a situation where you don't want that to be the case. Just like with modifiers, how you want to do them in a certain order, you also want to do the process of this in a certain order. So if I were making a chain necklace, the first thing I would do is exactly what you've done here, which is like set up my chain on a curve and such. And then I might even model what you have here, which is your heart and your gold chain. But what I would be doing next is I would have the character in the scene that you want to use, and I would be positioning the necklace part. Like, let's just imagine that
okay, well, wait, how did you just do that? Because I was going to ask that question. How do you make it look like it's laying on a neck?
Okay.
And not like it's just like sitting on like a perfect invisible planet.
Yes. Well, speaking of order of things, we should consider all of these things in order. So let me just run you through what I would do, and then we can come back and I will repeat sort of how exactly you want to manipulate these things.
Okay.
So for the order of things, if I was working on this, I would set up the necklace the way you have it. Maybe I'd even have this modeled. You don't need it right away, but like I like to have all my stuff done, and then we just go into positioning. And I'll explain exactly how we get here later. But let's just imagine that there's a character's neck here, and we're positioning it around there. And we like the look of this, ignoring that we have a gap here. Let's just assume it looked perfect. That's when I would come in and manually position the heart chain in at the end. After I know, like, I like the necklace location, that's when I would put in the final finishing touches. You don't really need to combine these together into one object until you're ready to export. So, like, if the character's neck actually was there, and I'm not a good drawer, so I don't know how to draw a neck, but if that was a character's neck there, and it was exactly how we wanted it positioned, that's when I would move the other stuff into the right orientation and sort of where we want it to be.
Okay, so because I'm not happy with it right now, I wouldn't connect the heart to the pearls, because then it wouldn't look how I would want it to look in the end, right?
Correct.
Okay, I follow the logic. So then the next question would be, how do I get it to sit like how you had before, like pretty like on a neck, instead of just like this perfect circle that doesn't exist? I don't think anybody has a perfect circle neck.
Long pause, because Reverse does have a perfect circle neck.
it was more like holding back like 3 different jokes that all popped in my head, and I'm like, that's not the time, brain. That's not the time. So the first thing that you would need to position it is to have a neck to position it on.
Gotcha.
Now, fortunately, there are lots of resources in the Creator Hub for downloading different models to put into your scene so that you can work on them and sort of position your necklace in the right place.
Where's that?
Well, there'll be a link on the screen. I have a good authority.
It just says resources
from my
and description.
Editor that there will be a link on the screen.
There it is.
Boom! There it is.
Woo!
Wow. Magic.
So would it matter which one gets downloaded?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what you have to think about is how you want your necklace to appear on the character and sort of what character you want them to appear on. With classic accessories, they're static, so you're going to end up making a necklace that is kind of like one size fits all, but you will never be able to make a perfect necklace that fits, perfectly around the goblin and around the blocky. So usually my process looks like, and I will pull up one of my own files here if you give me a moment, but my process looks like I have a couple of bodies already in my scene that once you set this up once, you can save this. I just call this my base file. You have a couple of objects, characters in the scene already, and I'll just paste these into your file. Mine are controlled sizes, so this is actually how they exist in Roblox.
Oh wow, so my necklace would be a carpet.
Well, that's the joy of Blender. You can scale it up and down as much as you want. And almost always when I do this, it doesn't crash Blender.
But of course.
Hey, there we
I
go.
had thought about it for a minute.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, so these are actually the correct orientation to...
Oh, okay.
So our necklace is backwards. But yeah, these are the two dummies that I use the most. They are a good approximation. The blocky has got like a very high neck line. Like it's you can also see like its shoulders, they come right up. It basically doesn't have a neck at all. Whereas the girl body here, I think it's the Woman 2.0 is the actual name of this. It has an actual neck, and it has like really sloping shoulders. So I usually try to do something that kind of fits on both of these, and then that like applies pretty universally to bundles and to other items. A lot of bundles are made with these characters in mind, so this is like a good rule of thumb. But like I said, you can also grab these off of the documentation. There's one of them. And then I think there's a blocky one as well.
And so when you lay them on the character and they're the size of the character and everything, that's how they're going to like potentially export in Roblox Studio, right? Because like I've just been dabbling in Blender so far, but how would I like bridge that gap to make sure my item is perfect for when it goes to the Roblox?
Well, on your first try, I would say don't worry about that too much.
Okay.
If you're new to this, I say just build whatever your vision is for the art. Make it look as close to that as you think you can, and then when you export it, that's immediately after the first time you export it, you'll start getting some ideas of like, okay, well this exported in this way, and I wasn't expecting that. But it's usually pretty one-to-one. My thing for like if you're watching this and you export for the first time is like sometimes there's some trouble with like maybe you don't export at the right scale or something, but those are all problems that you can correct, and you don't lose anything by exporting it. So like you can export it, oh no, it's the size of the skybox, let's export it at like 0.01 scale or something.
Okay, perfect. And then I guess Madison, so how would I know if like the way it looks that I've textured it, I guess, in Blender, how would I know if that's how it's going to look when I'm finished with it?
So with that, it's we'll get into that a little bit with how you have the kind of metallic effect on here. There are ways to get it to look approximately like how it's going to look in Studio. You can always test it in Studio. I know that Reverse has a whole setup in Studio to test out what they'll actually look like in game, and so we can test it in there if you like. But for things like accessories, like this necklace, we can set it up so it'll look pretty much like how it's going to look in Studio. Unfortunately, because accessories don't use these metallic or roughness maps, we will have to take them off and just do an approximation of it in Photoshop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And if I might jump in
Okay.
right here, I should point out that I think one of the ways that you're achieving this very wonderful, I really like how this looks, metallic effect, is you have the metalness set up to 100 on the
Yes.
material. That will not export when you export the texture.
No!
So, I know.
Yeah.
So, when we get to it, when we get to that point, we will show you sort of how you can make a texture that looks close to this. Okay, you've got your model pretty much ready to go. There's stuff that we want to get to, and in order to get to that, we need to start by positioning the necklace the way you want it to look on your character. So just like with models, curves, you can edit their positions to sort of stretch and pull and etc., and position the way you want to. So how you do that is you actually do have to select the little wire in between your chains, which can be a little difficult. You can also click the Explorer on the top right, the scene collection. And then you can hit Tab to go into edit mode. And you should have these little dots.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're working with something called a Bezier curve. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Which means that basically you have any of these dots are like a node, and then they have handles, so that like sort of sets the direction. So if you grab one of the handles on the side, it will like pull the necklace left or right, and then the middle one will just like control the whole thing.
Oh, wow.
But we don't really need to worry about that right now. I would just focus on the main middle nodes. And yeah, so once again, like I said, this is just kind of like editing models. So if you hit A, you can select all of the pieces of your curve. And then obviously our mannequins here are a little small compared to your necklace. So we're going to scale that down quite a bit. Which you'll immediately notice some weirdness.
Overwrap.
But don't worry. That is just
Okay.
because the model is on the curve, and so
Yeah.
the model size isn't changing when you scale the curve.
Okay.
So once you get it the curve down to like maybe neck size, you can even bring it up with G and Z. Oh, you'll have to actually left click to
Yeah.
apply the scale. It doesn't have to be perfect right now. Just getting it kind of closer to where we want it. Now, if we go into object mode and then select the necklace itself, we can just scale that down with the S key in object mode until it gets down to be a little more appropriate. See, that's looking pretty good. And get it to whatever size you think is appropriate for your item to be. Now, there's a problem that you may have noticed. I'm actually not seeing it right now on the scale I have it to, but currently you have, if you go to your modifiers tab, you have your array modifier set to fixed count. Now there's a trick I like to use when I'm working on getting the necklace into the right place. If you click that and then go to fit curve, then you click that little eyedropper and then click on the curve you have there. You can actually make it fit the curve. But it's not going to do that yet because when we scaled it down, it didn't apply its scale. So if you select yeah, you've got it. Just hit Control A or Command A. and hit scale, and that'll fix it.
Oh, wow.
Now, you might have little weird places, like on mine, you can see like this chain is doubled up. Don't worry about that for now. When we get to the end, we'll make sure that it looks perfect.
Okay.
Alright, so once again, we'll have to select the curve itself. So you have to get in between those chains and click that little line. And then we just want to play with it. You know, it's kind of, you want your necklace down in front, so maybe I'm going to hit G and Y to bring it forward. Mine's a little on the low side, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit. Bring this part down a little bit, bring it back. Scale the handles. Just kind of get it looking the way you might want it to look.
Does it matter if it's hidden within the body? Or should I make sure it's on top of the body?
So that's a great question. On Roblox's end, they don't like mind if it's clipping into the body a little bit. Obviously, if you're going to wear this, or if you want people to wear this, they're going to care a little more about that sort of thing. But like I said, you can't really get it perfect. And if you go back into object mode and you hide the blocky dummy, you'll see that with I think it's just the H key. Yeah, you can do that too. You'll see that it's kind of floating on this character. Now, this depends on what character you use the most. Personally, whenever I'm doing jewelry, I like to fit it more on this like more 2.0 body, because I think that's more what my customers like. But you know, it depends on what you're making it for. If you're making it for you, you know, make it on whatever size you think it should be. But I like making it on the 2.0 body because you can kind of like hide the top part of the necklace, so that it's like still just peeking through. So it kind of looks like a chain on the blocky body, but then if you look at it on the 2.0 body, it looks like perfectly fitted.
Interesting. Okay, so when I'm moving the necklace, it has to be in edit mode, not object mode, because I just tried moving it and it did something weird.
Yeah, definitely in edit mode,
Okay.
and you need to have the curve selected, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I really like the way you have this positioned, by the way. You're doing a great job at getting it in the right spot. And really, it does come down to like where the right spot is. Really is up to you and what you want to see.
Oh, thank you.
Prodigy of On.
No.
Yes. You're learning this stuff so fast. I can't even keep up with what Reverse is doing. I'm like, what is going on?
I hope I'm not going too fast for the tutorial.
No, you're doing great.
I've taught exactly one person how to model, and that was Danny. So,
How dare
You know.
you? Just one?
what?
You're up to like 3 now. I should at least be number 2.
That's true.
Oh, Josh, you're here. I thought you weren't here.
Yeah, whatever, dude.
So this is going to be time lapse, but I'm going to jump in and give you a tip here.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing as you're manipulating this, you've kind of got it. Curves aren't easy to mirror, I'll put it that way. So you've kind of got your necklace a little off kilter on the different sides. If you wanted to unify that, like let's say
I
mine
see.
was off kilter, and you may not want to. Maybe you want it to have that sort of baggy look. But if you wanted to fix that, you can always grab 2 handles, hit scale, and then like lock to the Z-axis, and then
Wait,
scale
grab
them
what, 2
down.
handles?
If you
Oh, I
grab
see
like
what
the
you-
2
okay,
on
wait,
the
yes,
opposite
okay, yeah.
sides, like you can always scale them so that they're on the same level, and you can even go into like different menus and manipulate that. But for this purposes of this, like if you wanted to keep those a little closer, you can always with them both selected, like you only have the tail of the one selected, but if you select the middle bit
Oh, okay.
at the same time as the other one, and then hit scale, the S key, and then Z and 0, that'll like lock them to the same plane, and then you can like rotate. Like I've just done that, and I'm rotating on the x-axis now, and then I can bring them down, so they're all kind of in line with each other. If you wanted it to be more uniform.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Like I said, curves are a little harder to do with mirrors. You could set it up to do that. I don't think it's necessary in this case. But yeah, always being able to return to sort of like solid 0 rotation is great if you want to make things look more uniform.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I love how it's sitting, I think. So I think that's good.
Yeah, I'm going to make mine droop down. Definitely because it's what I want and not because I'm too lazy to scale it.
Okay.
But like I said, this process is whatever you want it to be, however you want it to look. Now, if you pan to the back of your mannequin and zoom in, you'll see there's that weird overlap, and that's because we had it fit the curve. Now, I know it's going to seem silly because I said you want it to fit the curve at first. I usually use fit to curve until I get it to a point where I think it looks pretty good, and then I go back to fixed count and then get it as close as possible.
Oh, okay. So if I go back to fixed count, it won't...
It will overlap, but now you want to bring the number down until you get, like, on mine, I have, like, just this tiny, tiny gap. So you bring that down maybe a couple more. There you go. Perfect. Now, if you look, there's only a tiny little gap. Now, if you go back into editing the curve, and then you hit A to select them all, and you hit S to scale it down, you can just very slowly pull that in until they link. And boom, there you go. I think that looks great.
Yeah, I think that looks good too.
And now we can finally answer your original question, which was, how does the heart connect?
Yes. So I got it to lay naturally, but we're missing my heart back there.
Okay, so you want to fit the heart on. That's really, there's lots of different ways to do that. The simplest way is to just select everything in edit mode, and then, just like we were doing with the necklace, sort of rotate it into the right position. And the way I did that was I selected everything, I hit R for rotate, and then the X key, and then I did 90. It turns it upside down, but I'll hit negative to make it negative 90. Yeah, this is a cool thing about Blender, but you can actually type in numbers to tell it the angle to change it to. So, and you can do it there too. Boom. And then it's backwards, so if you lock it to the Z axis and do 180, it might just be regular 90 now, based on the way you already rotated the Z axis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then hit enter to apply that. Great, and now you can drag that into position, scale it, move it around, get it, just like we were manipulating the necklace part of it. You can manipulate it right to the perfect spot. Remember earlier when I said save in iterations, make backups and stuff? We are at the point in which, like, you want to do this frequently, but this is one of those key points where you're going to want to, maybe what I would do is I would select the curve, the necklace, the chain, and the heart. And I would duplicate those things, which is Shift D in Blender, and like move it to the side and then move it to my backup collection, just so I had it somewhere. Or yeah, I might not even move it, I might just move it to the backup collection, so it's in the right position, but just to have it, because the next step is, if you're going to want to export this, to move it to a collection is M, by the way.
Okay.
If you're going to want to export this, you're going to have to do some applying. And once you apply, there ain't no going back.
Oh no.
Yeah, okay. It's the spooky moment where, and this is like, Yeah, it's where most artists spend most of their time, is just right at the end, the tail end, like meticulously. I guess this correct. I gotta get this perfect before I apply it. Beautiful necklace, looking good. So before we export this, we have to make sure that all of the pieces are part of the same whole. So you need to combine them all into the same object. But before you do that, you have to apply the modifiers, specifically the ones on the chain with the pearls. So hovering over the array modifier, if you hit Command or Control A, that will apply it. And then the same thing with the curve.
Hey, Reverse, what happens if you don't do that?
What happens if you don't do that? Here, I'll show you. So this is what happens if you don't do that and you combine everything together. Oh, my chain is gone. Now it's below her feet. Well, maybe I just combined it the wrong way. Maybe if I select this one and combine it... Oh, no. Oh no.
That's what was happening to me.
Oh, no.
It was going into space.
Cosmic horror.
That's not what we want. So, yes, you do want to apply your modifiers, because we don't want the heart to be part of the chain, right? We want it to be exactly where we put it. So, applying the modifiers, joining them all together. Joining them all together is just selecting them all and hitting Control or Command J. You don't need to select the curve. In fact, you can try combining them. I don't think the curve will just sit there. You can just delete the curve if you want.
Oh, okay.
Don't need it. It's done its job.
It did what it had to do.
Did some heavy lifting. Yeah, there you go.
Love it.
All right, and now we have to export it to Roblox.
Okay.
The exciting part. So, the way you do that is you select your necklace. You go to Export, which is in the top left under File. And then you hit FBX. Now, you can export as an OBJ and a GLTF, but I use FBX, even though I'm told GLTF is a better format. I don't know how to use it yet.
Hey, Yvonne,
Do I have to change?
Don't you still have a modifier that you haven't applied? Smooth by angle? Yeah. Reverse, is that
If you want to queue that up as a question that she asks, I can address it.
Okay. All right, I don't exist. I'm wondering if you should apply that one as well, or if that's a special modifier you don't have to apply before you export.
Okay. Wait, Reverse, I didn't apply the smoothing modifier. Is that technically a modifier, or is it okay?
So the smooth by angle modifier is a new thing for me. Blender has recently started making this a modifier. It used to just be an option in the data page. Smooth by angle just tells your model how the lighting should be applied to it. If we hide that, it doesn't change anything on your model because everything is already shaded flat. But if you wanted to have your chain be like really smooth, you can accomplish that with that modifier. In our case, it doesn't matter because you're not using it, but I'm pretty sure it should just apply automatically. I'm pretty sure for your flower item, that is something that you'll want to make sure you have in there when you export it.
Okay, so do apply it.
So I should explain this a little more thoroughly. Some modifiers you don't have to apply. Some modifiers you don't have to apply when you export it, because the export process will apply it for you, and you might not want that modifier to be applied in that way to your model when you're editing it. So if we were using a mirror modifier here, this is going to look terrible, but like I'll just show you. If we were using a mirror modifier here, just imagine this is what I want it to look like.
Okay.
If we applied that and then exported it and then realized, oh no, this pearl here is too small. Well, now I have to scale down both of them. We don't want to do that, so we want to keep certain modifiers unapplied, because when you export your item, they will export with those modifiers already applied.
Okay.
Good question.
So apply it?
No, you don't have to apply it.
No.
Voice in my head.
No. Final answer. No, not needed.
You can copy this one-to-one, but I will also walk you through what these mean. So, to start off with, you want to select selected objects only, so limit to selected objects only. That way we're not exporting everything in all the backup places.
Okay.
Everything else in that panel should be good. The transform all looks correct by default, which except for the apply scaling, I would set that to FBX unit scale. And that's actually all you need for exporting something like the necklace, which is a static item. So you should be able to export correctly this time. From this page, you have import only as model. That's fine. Upload to Roblox, I'd uncheck. You don't need that on. Everything else should be good. And hit import. Yay!
All right.
There it is.
Wait, it's floating.
That's all right. It can float.
Okay. Okay.
Well, before you make it into an actual hat item, you would want to position it, and I would suggest trying to position it on the rig as best as you can to see what that looks like. There should be a dragger tool. I don't know the hotkey because I've changed mine, but if you go up to model, oh, it's actually just on the left there. You see the move button? Great. And now you should be able to just drag it down. Under move, there's like a thing that says 1 studs on the just to the right of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just change it down to as low as it can go.
2 studs.
You can even set it to like 0, I'm pretty sure.
That works.
There you go. That looks good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Now, you might want to move it back a little bit, whatever. It doesn't matter so much right now because, as you know, it doesn't have the right texture on it, and it's not quite ready to go. So you'll notice immediately that your texture that exported doesn't have the like shininess.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you can't export that directly from Blender into Roblox. So that's where the texturing trickery is going to come in. But yeah, right now you technically have an item that you could try and publish. So if we go back into Blender, so there's 2 things that are a problem right now. One, you don't have the heart on there. That's no good. It does look. Is the second chain unwrapped?
Yes.
Yes. Great. I'm gonna get rid of all the materials. So one thing that you want to fix right away is you'll notice your bottom left circle here is way too close to the edges. This is not best practice. You want to be at least one of these big squares away on your UV. So the fastest way to fix that is just if you hit the C key, it'll pull up the circle tool. And then if you left click on one of those faces, you can just hit Control L now. Like if you left click, then right click, and then hit Control L, it'll select everything that's linked together. Command L. And then now you can just scale it with the S key.
Perfect.
Great. The other one is far enough away from the border, I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, definitely a good rule of thumb, keep things away, far away from the borders.
Okay.
The next thing we've got going on here is the heart. The best way to unwrap this is going to be to actually properly mark the seams. It seems you've already done that for the pearls. For the heart, it looks intimidating, but it's not too bad. So what you want to do is, and you can think, by the way, if you're new to texturing, think about texturing like this. You want to mark a seam on everything that's on like a 45 degree or 90 angle. Like not always on 45 degrees. You see, like you wouldn't want to mark it here necessarily on the chain. But for this, you can see sort of the diamond necklace heart is kind of divided in half. You've got like a nice rolling shape there and a sharp shape here. This middle bit is where we're going to want to add the seam. So what I'm going to do here is select all of the edges on the very top of the diamond. So the way I'm doing that, I'm not displaying my key clicks in here. That's annoying. I guess I have to enable that. So the way I'm doing that is I'm holding down Shift and Alt and then left clicking. And what that is doing is selecting all the edge loops when I'm in edit mode. Now that you have them all selected, you can hit Control or Command E and mark the seam. And now, since we only want to unwrap our heart, since we already have those edges selected, we can also hit Control L and select them all, just like we did on the UV. And then you can hit U and do unwrap angled base. Angle based.
All right.
Cool. Now you want to go up to UV editing to see where that came out. So now those are all there. But you know that there's other UVs in your scene, so I would hit A to select them all. And I would drag them away from the middle part, because when we select everything again, we don't want to have them be overlapping. And then if you go into the right panel and hit A, it'll select everything so you can see it all on the UV.
Oh, gotcha.
Now, you could try to fit your hearts in here, but we know that the chain part of the mesh doesn't need to be as big because it's got a bunch of those chains overlapped on top of each other. So what I would do is I would select this big chain you have. It's taking up way too much of the screen. I would just select, and again, yeah, with the C tool. Isn't that an awesome tool? I love that one.
Yes.
And then once you have it all selected and you right click to deselect the circle tool, you can scale that, and then I just move it up to the corner. It doesn't need to be too small, but it doesn't need to be so big either. And now we can go down. We know that the front of the heart is the place that doesn't have these like extra lines on the outside, because we marked it that way. The front of the heart you're going to want to have be bigger, because imagine more people are going to be seeing the front of the heart than the back of the heart, and the smaller the UV island is, the less you're going to be able to squeeze out of the texture. You can just hit Control L now that you've got anything selected on that. Control L, super useful tool. So yeah, I'd position that, make it pretty big, you know. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine, but you know, close is ideal. And then I would select the other half and rotate it fit. A lot of people say they don't like UV editing. I like it. It's like a puzzle. But you get to decide how the puzzle looks when it's done.
Yeah.
All right, boom. And now you've got a perfect texture here, a perfect UV map.
Perfect.
And we can go ahead and export that the same way we did last time, which I think, not exporting FBX, but exporting the UV so that you can bring it to your editor. So I think if you're in this panel, yeah, there you go, perfect. So that's UV, export UV layout for those listening.
Nice memory. And then would you be able to send me this new blend file?
Yeah.
And then I can also have the UV.
Yeah, if you're ever collaborating, remember, everyone needs to have the same file, because if I sent Madison my file, my UV is not quite aligned with Yvonne's UV, and that could make things a mess. So if you're ever working on a team, make sure everyone has the same file.
So we know here that these are our hearts, this is the gold chain, and these are the pearls. So the first step basically is just to get our basic color scheme that we want. So I like to start off with just kind of a flat color scheme. And then we're going to add and be thinking about our shadows, our highlights, where the light is hitting on the pendant, and then we, at the very end, is when I like to worry about the tiny details, the seams, the parts that are, you know, a little bit off, where you can see the edges of where the UVs don't quite align, and do all that sort of tiny detail work. So I really liked your color scheme that you had in Blender, where you had the kind of pinkish hue on the heart. Is that what you were kind of envisioning in your head?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Great. And then we're going to, why is this so dark? Okay. So we'll kind of put that as our base layer on and around the hearts. And it kind of depends on how you like to do it. I like to do as many layers as possible so that you can go back and edit as much as easily as possible.
Okay, so like every color is a new layer?
Yeah, that's how I like to do it. And then you can just kind of go back and change them a little bit easier. Like if you want to do it a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, you won't be changing everything else in the process. And if you want, you can click on this square, and that kind of makes it a little bit easier to get a more specific color that you like. You can kind of experiment. And there are going to be parts of this that we lighten up and darken up, and so I like to pick just kind of a middle ground color, one that's not going to be the lightest part of the item, and another part that's not going to be the darkest, or oh my goodness, sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied. A color that's not necessarily going to be the lightest part, and not necessarily going to be the darkest part, because we're going to add highlights and shadows.
Okay.
And then in the Blender file, did you have your pearl be just straight white, or did you make it a little bit?
I made it a little bit like this, kind of like ivory.
Yeah, I like that. Pearls are very difficult because they are like very complicated colors.
Yeah.
There's a lot of, they kind of have a lot of colors varied throughout them. So these are our flat colors. I would say we don't have to test it out at this point because it's they're just going to be the flat colors. So you can imagine what it's kind of going to be like. And so I'm going to put these all into a folder called flat colors. And then you can close this, and we can go back into it if we need to, but it's not taking up so much space in our workspace. Okay. And then you can add another layer on top of that, and this will be the start of our shadows. If we look back at our references, we can see that depending on where the light is, the shadows are usually kind of around the side and near the bottom. Mm-hmm. This one is a little bit different, but you kind of go with what it generally looks like. I would recommend going, usually highlights are on top, shadows are on the bottom. Yeah. And so we'll go back, and what we can do is we can usually to darken a color is the best way to do that is to use go up here, and instead of a normal layer, we'll have it be a multiply, which means it's going to take the layer that it's going on top of, and it will have a similar hue, but it will just make it a little bit darker and a little more saturated. Cool. Yeah.
You don't have to guess in the colors.
Right. And so with this one, we'll start with the heart again. Actually, you know what? I changed my mind. The heart's actually probably going to be the most complicated, so we'll probably start with the gold chain.
Okay.
And so with gold chains, usually the darkest part is in the outside edges, and the lightest part is usually on the inside. Mm-hmm. We can start off with the same exact gold color if you use your eyedropper tool and get that. And you can kind of test it out. Usually I find that to be a little too saturated. So you can just Control Z. Usually when I multiply, I go a little darker and a little less saturated. And then that looks a little bit more like natural. And then I also like to change my hardness to 0%, because since it's going to be, like a fade, a gradient, it's going to be, not a hard brush. And so what I like to start out doing is just a general, just kind of going around the edges and generally just kind of making those a little darker. And then we can make it even more of a gradient by going to the smudge tool, which is this little fingerprint on the left. Perfect. And I like to also, oops, mine set to something different. I also like to set that to hardness 0. And you want to make the strength like on the lower end, something like, 20 to 30%. Because if you make the strength 100%, it's going to take all these colors and really intensely, it's going to move it like 100% of it this way. But this way you can just get like a smooth little smudge, and you can just kind of like drag it around and make it a little more blended in with that color that's underneath it.
Yes.
Yeah, and sometimes you want like stronger shadows, and sometimes you want subtle shadows. And if you want this to be like, if you're looking at this and thinking, oh, it's a little too dark or it's a little too light, you can change the opacity to be a little less if you want it less strong, or you can click Control R to change the lightness or the brightness and make it a little darker or a little more saturated or a little less saturated. And so that way you can kind of adjust it as you like it, or if you plug it in, plug it into Studio and you like it or you don't like it, you can adjust it a little faster, a little easier. You can also do some cleanup here with, because like my color is bleeding into like my pink a little bit, so I just like to just erase it from outside of where my bounds are. And then when you lighten up something, usually I like to go with something like a overlay or a soft light. And we can go with a similar deal as last time. Take the base color that you have and just lighten it up and desaturate it a little bit. And then you want to set it to like an overlay or a soft light. And then you'll do kind of the same thing. You can either blur it from that filter, or you can use that smudge tool to kind of add little touches of highlights in other spots. You can also change the opacity of your brush if you are wanting to make some more subtle highlights.
More realistic shine on that gold.
Yeah. And then with the pearls, we can do kind of something similar of doing the pearl shadow, pearl highlight, pearl shadow. And for these, it's kind of, once you start doing it more and more, you kind of get you get this sort of x-ray vision in your head of like, oh, this is how the UV looks flat, and this is how it will look like when it's, three-dimensional on the object.
Mm-hmm.
So since these are two separate, circles that are going to morph into one ball, the seam is actually going to be this part right around here. So we're going to want to try and make the outer edges of each circle the same, because otherwise there will be a big, blunt seam in the middle, and those can be really hard to fix later on.
Okay.
And so honestly, I might not do anything on the edges, because that might be a little bit easier to, stray away from.
Yeah.
And so I might just add a shadow in the middle, and the middle of this UV will be the edges where it kind of connects to the gold chain. If that makes sense. Hopefully it'll make more sense once we put it on the model.
Yeah. We wanted the dissolve for the shadow, right?
No, the dissolve makes it like really pixelated. It's a multiply.
Multiply, okay.
Yeah.
Knew I got it wrong when I I was like, that does not look right.
Right, and then you can always once you have it on there, you can always look and experiment of like what you like best. Like we can put something on here and then change it to dissolve and say, oh, that doesn't look right, that, or put it to color burn, or maybe put it to like screen and think, oh, I actually like that better. But
Mm-hmm.
It's all about experimenting and seeing what you like.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna make a big blob in the middle of all of these, or both of these. Since the heart is kind of the focal point of the whole necklace, we're going to want to put the most intensity and the most detail into that, because it's not like people aren't going to be looking at the pearls and the chains. It's just that this is going to be kind of the highlight of the item. And you can also see that the extreme, or the shadows and the highlights on these are the most extreme. And so we really want to kind of not be afraid of making those more extreme than we did on, and more intense than we did on the chains and the pearls. That's a mistake I made when I was first starting out, is I was really scared to make things very intense. But it will make the item look better in the long run. I'll make this darker, and I might actually want to make it more saturated, because then it's a little more intense. And for the highlights, I like to make them even smaller and even more crisp and clear, because usually the highlights on these items are pretty sharp, much sharper than the shadows, yeah.
Are there any items that you've done that you're like, oh, that's absolutely perfect?
No. Usually I look back on my items and I think, oh, this would have looked so much better if I had just changed these things a little bit or added a little more detail here. But, that just means you're growing as an artist. I look at some of my earliest work and I'm like, I can't believe that I let that pass as my artwork.
Is it like as you go, you learn and you're quicker and all these other things?
Oh yeah. Like I remember looking at items before where I didn't even know how to like blur an image, and so I was just trying to make these rainbow gradients with no like blurring or smoothing or smudging. I was just trying to do it by hand with just the brush tool, and it was
wow,
it was horrible. And I was like, on the one hand, I'm impressed at how I
you were able
made
to
that work harder
that?
for myself, yeah. But on the other hand, I could do that in 10 seconds now. Whenever you feel like it's a good kind of starting point, we will take off the UV layer, and then we'll save it as a PNG, and we will test it out.
I think first what I would do is I would check it in Blender, just to make sure. Blender it's a lot easier to plug in images. So if you do it in Blender, you can make sure that there's no weird seams and that nothing looks like horribly not the way you wanted it to look, etc., etc. Now, when you combined earlier all the parts together, it left 3 materials in there. I would just hit the minus button and get rid of all of them and start with a new one.
Okay.
Oh,
you might have
you have to do that in object mode.
Oh, gotcha.
I think that's going to be under surface. Yeah. Base color, and then click the yellow dot. Go to the base color.
Oh, this one right here. Yeah.
Oh, remember how earlier I had you set it into that circle? That you can try hitting material. Yeah, that's looking like what you did.
Wow.
And so another thing, the best way I find to look at these things is to go to that flat circle next to it, and then go to that bottom arrow on the right, and click flat, right, and then click texture under color. Yep, perfect. And that makes it look just a little more, I don't know.
That's closer to Studio than you would have. This is closer to what it looks like in Roblox. And if you even go further in that drop-down, if you turn on shadows and cavities, I find that makes it look even more like Roblox.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Can you pull up side by side those, like, here's the quote, like the Roblox one that you did in Photoshop. But then if you have, you duplicated your necklace, if you pull it up, you'd have what you had, 2 hours ago, compared side by side to this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can even compare the necklaces if you pull back up your backups. They won't look the same because you're in a different setting mode. If you go to the material mode, I'm not actually sure you can see them side by side exactly the way that you want to, but you can kind of tell the difference.
Oh yeah, right there.
And of course, it does. You want that shininess in it, but since we can't do that with static objects, I think it turned out really, really good. All right, so now you want to see your thing in Studio,
yes,
with the texture on it, looking all nice. So you will need to upload the image to Roblox. So if you want to tab over to Studio when you get the chance, good call on saving. In a new place file that's not published, you won't be able to upload images from Studio that I'm aware of. So you actually have to go to the website and go to the create page, create.roblox.com. So you want to go to development items. It's up on the side right under the word creations.
I got
items,
you. Okay.
development items. And then you're going to want to go to decals.
Decals.
And then you should be able to click the upload asset button there. Then you hit upload, find your image, and then scroll down and there should be an upload button.
All right.
Boom. Now, if you had a place file that was published and you were editing it from like a group or something, you could use the asset manager for this, which is a lot faster. But for the time being, that's how you would do it. If you click on that, it should take you to like a page. And you see those 3 little dots? Copy asset ID is what you want.
Okay.
Now, if you go back into Studio, you can plug that ID into the mesh. So if you click on the necklace you have there, in the Explorer over there, open up the model, because it's in a model, it seems. You can just click the arrow there. Click on that heart, and then go to the texture ID and just plug in the number you copied. And hit enter.
Oh wow! Wait, it didn't quite work.
Oh, it's because I know what happened.
It's because we exported it before we finished the UV changes. See, this is we're tying back in. We earlier we realized that we hadn't done the UV changes, and then we forgot to re-export the model. There it is. Look at that.
Oh.
Look at that. Hit import. There it is.
It's coming.
It's coming.
Yes.
Wait,
It was hanging because for some
it
reason
there?
it wasn't going
it's
onto
there.
your account.
I see it. It's
It's
floating in space.
Oh my gosh, it's there.
Wait, I can grab it almost.
Get it!
Almost.
Yay!
Yay!
We got it on the first try, everybody.
Woo!
We got it on the first try.
Okay,
You
all right,
are.
let's do send off. So last time you did a letter grade, that was fun.
Yeah. So, Yvonne, this is amazing. I am so impressed with what you've done. I would definitely, if I had to give you a letter grade again, I would give you an A, because especially because we had so many issues that we had to navigate and figure out, which is totally normal, especially when you're learning something as complicated as this. I'm so impressed. These things took us like years to figure out. So I am very, very impressed. So I would say A+.
Thank you.
Being the old curmudgeon that I am, I would say last time I think I gave you a B-. This
Yes.
time I wouldn't go quite as far as an A. I'd give it a B+.
Okay.
I'm really impressed by how well you picked up on the modifiers and the curve, the array. I think that's really, I hope that's encouraging to people who are watching this. Definitely practice up on your moving around in the interface and like moving things around and just like learning those basic hotkeys. I think that'll take you very far from a B+ to like an A+.
And next week, I think we're going on to layered clothing, and that is just an extra step in the process, and it is, I think that it's hard, but it is going to really cement everything else that we've talked about, and I think it's going to make everything just click and make sense, hopefully.
Okay.
Bring it all together.
Wrap it all up. It'll
Full
be great.
circle.